ending stolen from it's the Jingle Bell Rock. Anyway, never mind. That is a tune of mine from the last album I made, 2003 or 4 or something like that. I think it's on El Dorado. It's called Tickle Me. And lately I've been playing a little bit, trying to brush it up and get it back in shape. There's another section, but I don't know if I can remember it. Let me think. So there's the whole thing, just kind of in bits and pieces, but it has a few repeats in it and other stuff. But 3 parts to that kind of ragtimey tune. It was one I had a lot of fun putting together a little over 20 years ago. It is January 17th. We're in the middle of NFL playoffs and coming up on the championship game, Notre Dame. Most of you probably don't know, but my family has a lot of ties to Notre Dame. My mother was born in South Bend, Indiana, and so I have a lot of still cousins and relatives there that people in South Bend live and die by Notre Dame football. Maybe a little bit basketball as much, but Notre Dame football is about all that's going on for my relatives in South Bend. So I'm pulling for them. Anyway, what is going on this week? Oh, we had a couple of new things. I have 2 big announcements, and then today what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a mini finger-picking course ranging from beginning to intermediate, maybe to even advanced intermediate. So hopefully I can squeeze that into like 10 minutes, coming up in just a couple minutes. Actually, in 2 minutes. I just have 2 things to tell you about that happened this week. One is we had Nesh put together a Bonnie Tyler lesson. It's a Heartache, kind of also a big hit for Rod Stewart, which probably made it a bigger hit anyway. So I hope some of you had a chance to check that out. And I mentioned a month or so ago, maybe, it came to my attention that one of our lessons had closed captions on it, or had it available. And this surprised the heck out of me. I had no idea that this was happening. Well, turns out that all of our lessons that we published after May of 2022, it's automatically included. Now, these of course are AI generated, as you know, you might, if you follow along, it's like it might not quite understand. But one of we got this request from somebody who was saying that I talk too fast. You think? And sometimes had trouble following what I was saying. I should just slow down and learn to give lessons a little bit more methodically, but that's not my style. Anyway, but having the closed captions across the bottom of the screen made it a lot more reasonable. And I have to admit that there are certain things I watch that I put them on, especially, do I want to let this secret out of the bag? Stuff when actors are speaking in old Scottish accents from the 18th century, I got to have the subtitles. You can probably guess what I'm talking about. Anyway, so the story on the closed captions is that we can sort of manually add them to older lessons if we get requests for one. So if there's somebody, and I'm sure that a lot of people out there really get a lot out of this. So there's now a thread or a forum about requests for lessons to be updated so that they include closed captions. So if you'd like to have that on a certain lesson, start filling in that thread, because I think we can sort of do them, we can kind of get somebody on them in the order that they get requested, rather than us just going back and updating like 17 or 1800 lessons. That's not in the cards for us. So anyhow, that's it for my big announcements. Closed captions and new lesson from Nesh. So I want to thank everybody for sitting through that. Now, what I want to have here is if you're just getting into fingerpicking, you should start with, you obviously could look at my course, Fingerpicking 101, but here are some songs that are really, here's like a whole little progression of songs that you should work on. The first is House of the Rising Sun. You should learn this 6-note arpeggio pattern. The big deal in most of fingerpicking technique, your thumb plays the bottom 3 strings. Your index finger plays the third string, your middle finger plays the second string, your ring finger plays the first string. So you kind of assign these three fingers to the top strings. Then you learn a very simple pattern. This is the House of the Rising Sun pattern. Thumb, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. Thumb, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. A 6-note pattern. And then you run through those chords. A minor to C to D. And in the lesson on this, I introduced another idea, a really important idea, and that is moving your fingers in the order that you need them. This is a perfect song to practice that on. In particular, when you go from the A minor to the C, you're going to let go of that last note. So your third finger is going to come off the G string and play an open G instead of an A on the way to the C, because if you hit the A clean, you're going to kill it right away. It'll sound like this. And that note got hit and then died, as opposed to if you leave it open. Now when you go to the D, watch my left hand. And the F. Put your fingers down in the order you're going to play them. That's the takeaway from House of the Rising Sun. Now, a little more complicated than House of the Rising Sun is Hallelujah, G's and E minors. Now, both of these songs are in 6/8 time, meaning we've got 6/8 notes in a measure, and when you have 6/8 notes in a measure, you accent the first one and the fourth one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Of course, in Hallelujah, in the introduction, we want to hear a passing F sharp in the bass. And back on the way to the G again. But then when the song starts, you just keep that pattern going. I sometimes have students play that E minor without any notes down because you're not actually playing only open strings. Then it goes to a C, then a half a measure of C. Now what we do in this half a measure is a pinch and reverse it. Go thumb and 3 to your middle finger and your index finger. And the same thing on the D chord, there's also half a measure. And back to G for a whole measure. So those two songs are in 6/8 time, and you hit one note on every eighth note. Same pattern, but for a song in 3/4 time. Now the difference here is I'm going to play a D minor chord, and if I'm going to feel this in 6/8, I'm going to feel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if I want to feel it in 3/4, I'm going to count it 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. The biggest difference there is I'm not accenting that fourth eighth note, which would be the F on the first string. Here it is in 6/8 where I'm going to accent that note. Here it is in 3/4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Now I'm doing this on a D minor chord because the song that you could mess around with this, a little more difficult, some bar chords and other complicated, not complicated, but a little more challenging changes, is the free lesson on Time in a Bottle. I have 2 lessons on Time in a Bottle. The free one goes through is how I would play it by myself if I didn't have 2 guitars and didn't have. Now there's the more elaborate lesson on Time in a Bottle shows you exactly what Jim and Maury are doing, both guitar parts. But the kind of what I'd call the generic version of it is D minor, C sharp in the bass, C in the bass, B in the bass, B flat, G minor, which you can play with one finger, A7, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. So, same picking pattern but different accents make it feel like 3/4 time as opposed to 6/8. A great song, one of the greatest songs of all time. Oh boy, that's throwing something out there. But at least one of the few songs that really demonstrates this difference is do 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 do. West Side Story. America alternates measures of 6/8 and 3/4. First measure is in 6/8. We'd count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the next measure we count 1 and 2 and 3 and. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1 and 2 and 3 and. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1 and 2 and 3 and. Now when we're counting the 1 and 2 and 3 and, what we're doing is counting quarter notes instead of the eighth notes. So if I was counting those as eighth notes, they'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Hopefully that clears up a little more than it muddies up. I can't be sure. Okay, the next thing you have to get down, finger picking, is the landslide pattern. Play a C chord, and this is now a song that has alternating bass. So now you're going to keep your thumb going at the speed of quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we play a finger on 3 of the ands. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Hitting the first bass note on the 5th string, then my index finger on the and of 1 on the 3rd string, second bass note on the 4th string, followed by your middle finger on the and of 2. That's the first 2 beats. 1 and 2 and. 3 is just like beat 1. Bass on the 5th string, index finger on the 3rd string, and then beat 4 and nothing on the and. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Now that alternating bass type pattern opens the door to thousands of songs, from Poncho and Lefty to a bunch of Stephen Stills tunes, Helplessly Hoping. Now all those have some specifically intricate, some specifically important little variations and embellishments, but that's the starting point for alternating bass songs. Then we have songs that don't play 4 bass notes in the measure. Really good example of this, and one you should look at least the introduction, is If You Could Read My Mind. All you need is a G in the bass, and the pattern now is going to be thumb, index, middle. You play thumb, finger, finger. Then a different thumb, the alternate thumb, on the 4th string, and your index and your middle again. That sounds like 6 beats, but we need 2 more eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you're going to hit the 4th bass note, the 3rd bass note on beat 4 on the 4th string. So it's thumb, index, middle, thumb on 4, index, middle, thumb on 4, index. Very slowly. I call this the 3-3-2 pattern because you have 3 eighth notes, another 3 with a different bass note, and then just 2, a thumb and an index. So in the case of If You Could Read My Mind, that's this. We'd be counting it 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That second bass note is on the and of beat 2. So to practice that in If You Could Read My Mind, you're going to play a measure of that G, and again, you only need 1 finger down for this G chord. And for the second measure, you're going to add your middle finger, your second finger on your left hand, to the A on the G string. That's the pattern that happens at the beginning of the verse. In the introduction, it's a little bit different. So you can take a look at the music to that and work on the intro, where he reverses the pattern a little bit and changes the A at sometimes at a different time. But good exercise for this is just that 3-3-2 pattern on a G chord, adding the A, making it a G add 9, and then changing the bass note to F, but not letting go of the A. 2 measures. So practice those 4 measures, the G with the add 9, and then dropping to the F in the bass. Now, the F in the bass changes the chord to, it's a really dissonant chord. We've got an F, a D, an A, and a B. To figure out what chord that is. If you look at the music, it's labeled on there. So if you want to puzzle that out and figure out what we call this chord that has F, D, A, and B. Really cool dissonant sounding chord. Now, a little even more complicated than that is Neil Diamond's tune Stones. Now that pattern has some threes in it and a four at the beginning. So I'm just playing a C chord, and I'm playing four notes going thumb, index, middle, index. Now I have four sets of three in a reverse order from the way it worked in If You Could Read My Mind, going thumb, and we're going to stay with the same bass note, the C in the bass. Thumb, middle, index, thumb, middle, index, thumb, middle, index, thumb, middle, index. So now we're not quite finished with this yet, but here's what that sounds like if I do it with just what I told you. And then it would start again. We'll do it a little faster and a couple times in a row. Now what really happens in the song though is when it starts the four sets of three, the note on the second string changes. The C comes off and back on and off and back on. Okay, so that's quite a range of stuff, from the simple 6-beat pattern in House the Rising Sun to the same pattern on Hallelujah, into how the same pattern works in 3/4 time in Time in a Bottle, into the alternating pattern of Landslide, and then into the 3/3/2 pattern of If You Could Read My Mind, and then a variation on that we might have to call a 4/3/3/3/3 pattern, which is 2 measures long. 4 eighth notes, then 4 sets of 3 to complete the 2 measures. In that case, it's 16 eighth notes long. Okay, well, you heard all of Tickle Me. You sat through like a 10-minute tutorial on fingerpicking. So for many of you, that might all be really old news. But if you're just kind of heading into fingerpicking and you want to start adding to your toolbox, take a look at those patterns and maybe even at those songs.